All right, welcome back, everyone, to Straight Cast into the Great Wide Opens. I'm your co-host, Jamie Bruce, and with me, as always, the beautiful Leuthner. How we doing, boss?
Oh, we're doing great, buddy. Just doing a little recouping from the 20-day grind.
Yeah, it was something else. I'm not really feeling it till right now, but we've got a good show lined up tonight. We've got Randy Blaukat in the green room, Kyle Patrick as well. We're going to talk points race a little bit. We're going to talk some controversial issues that are usually accompanied with Randy. So it's going to be a good show. We're going to get a look at something a lot of people don't see, and that's an interview with Randy. So it's going to be good. And let's talk about these last couple derbies, bud. We had Watts Bar, Tennessee. Congrats to Tyler Williams. And
Oh no.
what do you think, bud?
Watts Bar I was expecting a real big shithole when we got there, and it didn't let me down, but I actually didn't mind fishing there. I just kind of messed up my practice, which led into messing up a tournament, but there's lots of grass. That lake probably has some of the best grass in the country. I mean, actual milfoil, which you don't see too often anymore. So that was a lot of fun fishing. I know it was a struggle catching keepers, though. I mean, I was catching 30 to 50 fish a day, but you'd only get 3 to 5 keepers a day. So congrats to the guys who figured out how to get the keepers. And I also got busted trying. I had like a line burner the first day, and man, that guy at the bass tank, he's pretty much like a drill sergeant up there. He got me.
No, he had enough of you Googans trying to squeak shorts by. Don't worry, I got busted at Ozarks by him. I had a little shrinkage on one.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. You measure them before you throw them in the live well, and they seem to shrink up just a tiny little bit on you. Or maybe you're just excited when you're measuring it. Who knows? But
I think that's what happens because I fish walleye tournaments where you're not allowed to keep any over 18 inches, and guys say the same things. He grew. I guess just you get fired up. You don't do the proper procedure with the jaw closed and everything like that. But congrats to Tyler Williams there. That guy's a beauty. I've talked to him a couple times, and super fun guy, easy to get along with, and a well-deserved win.
He's on a heater too. He won that one and top 10 Ozarks. I mean, is he in the top 10 right now, or?
Yeah, he's in 9th. He whipped I think he was down in 27th, and he's battled his way up to 9th. He's made up like 120 points or something crazy like that. JT, John, Trey, Robert G's damn near solidified by now. Kent has been slipping a little, but he's still in 5th, and by like slipping for him means getting 50th. He's obviously, hopefully he stays in that points race and keeps making us all look bad. But Kyle Patrick made a huge jump. Logan Parks has been hunting it all season. Kyle Austin's been a sleeper, man. He's up in 8th now. I looked at his stats today, and I was super impressed. He has not had a single top 20 all year. He's made like 5 or 6 checks, and his lowest finish is 70th. So, he is playing that points game as well as anyone. He's just, under the radar, and he's now crept his way up to 8th place. Tyler Williams in 9th. Some fat gray Canadians in 10th.
Oh, no, that's the Canadian Sasquatch.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's you.
I like that handle.
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel bad for Brett Cannon. I really thought he was making a run for it there at the end, and just a miserable tournament.
Well, so he's still got a chance. We're gonna talk about it here. Wesley Gore's right behind me, literally by a point. Sam George, he's always teasing it every year in the opens. Logan Johnson's been right there. Joey had a tough one at Watts Bar. Him, Matt Henry, and I all dropped out of the top 10 at Watts Bar, and Joey and I came back. Bobby Lane's in 15th right there. Jacob Bigelow slipped down to 16th. Milliken still got a chance, 17th. Brett Cannon's right there. He's He's right there. He's tied with Raz Daddy in 19th, and they've got about 10 points on Keith Tuma. So, I mean, realistically, probably from Tuma up, Tuma's got a way outside chance, but he's won at the Harris Chain before. Felt horrible for him at this last one because he's been so consistent, so good all year, and he's still in the top 20. But I think it's pretty safe to say that it's narrowed down to 20, and man, it's tight there. It's going to be interesting. Like, being in the race is just as fun as watching it. Like, I like being there watching it in real time, just as a bass fishing nerd. But yeah, that's enough about Watts Bar.
Yeah, no doubt. What I can't believe, going into this year, we all thought it was going to be a little different point race. Well, I can't believe these guys like Tuma and Cannon and a bunch of guys who slipped up a little bit these last two, how consistent they were, and how one tournament can just beat you down to nothing. Like, it is really, the guys in the top 10 this year, top 20, we'll say, have been smashing it all year. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had 2 bombs. I had a 104 and a 122, and
you've had 2 top 5s there, top 8s, right? Or so that kind of evens you out quite a bit.
Yeah, so you can be that, that volatile and still survive as long as you can get your ass back up. That's the hardest part. But I think it helped me slipping down to 20th after Watts, because I could just go into Ozark with a no care swinging forward attitude. And if I would have went in trying to maintain points, it wouldn't have gone very well.
Yeah, I don't think you can fish it for points. You gotta be swinging as hard as you can. I never knew you were such a good dock skipper until I watched you the other day.
You could hear me ringing them bastards from a mile away with that big jig.
I thought you were scaring the snakes out from under the dock. I didn't know what you were doing.
Oh yeah, just proven versatility, Brad. You keep bugging me about being a live scoper, so
you are the best there is at live scope. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, come on, bud. Let's get real here. Hang on to your live scope comments for Randy coming up.
I don't want to get Randy fired up at live scope.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen at some point for sure. But yeah, the having that Fox Sports and all the coverage now on the points race is pretty badass. Like, it's cool, right?
It is definitely cool. I mean, to be right in the middle of it like you are, I mean, that has to be a dream come true, I would think.
No, I don't even mean that. I just mean watching it. Like, it's, they've never really had this much hype and coverage on the points race before. And everyone in fishing is paying at least a little bit attention to it, it seems like.
I think everyone is. The elites are over. MLF's pretty much over with. There's a few Toyotas left maybe. So, it's the biggest game going right now. So people still love to watch bass fishing. So
yeah, October makes it cool too, or September. I don't know, it seems like a bunch of fish are spread. I've never been down there that time of year, or any time of year really, but it it just makes it cool. Like, you had Ish and Bobby, doing the old school game at Watts Bar, and it's it's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of, and yeah, it's pretty sweet being on FS1, as you know.
Absolutely. Changes your fishing career. I know that.
Yeah. Even if you catch 6 pounds or whatever I had on the last day after penalties.
I think I had 14 on Thousand Islands. So you probably had a better day than I did.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, we're not going to make Randy sweat it too much longer here. I think we better just put the poles down, fill up your tin cup, and we got Randy Blaukat coming up next.
Oh, it's going to be good.
There's a moment when you're faced with a challenge, and just solving the problem isn't good enough, even if that means breaking the rules and shredding apart conventional ways of thinking, all in the name of creating something truly remarkable. With this much control at its command, we didn't stop with just one. We created 2 incredible trolling motors. Introducing the new Power Pole Move brushless trolling motor.
This is the mountain, and this is mountain whiskey. Unspoiled, untamed, forever wild. There's no safety net, no way down. Up here, it's just man, and the mountain, and his tin cup. Tin Cup Whiskey. Mountain Whiskey.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, buddy.
Turn your mic on, Randy.
Yeah, let me get that a second. Can you hear me now?
We got you now. How we doing?
Doing well. How are you guys doing, man?
Oh, we're doing great.
Yeah.
We're doing great. We know you got a derby coming up, so we want to thank you for making the time to hop on. We know you're a busy man, and
No problem, man.
Appreciate
Just
it.
driving back and forth. I got that Toyota Series tomorrow at Lake of the Ozarks. I'm driving back and forth from Springfield, so a lot of early mornings here.
Yeah, it must be tough getting to a derby on your home lake.
Well, it's not really it's in Missouri, but it's an hour and a half drive up there, but it's better than a little too close to stay in a hotel, and so it's just better staying at home on this one.
Yeah, I hear you. We got a travel partner that usually books houses about an hour and a half away, so we got to deal with the same damn thing. But yeah, Randy, Brad and I were talking earlier. We're both old school bass fans. So I mean, it is pretty cool having you on the show here. We appreciate it. We were talking earlier about your Bugs Island W. Having gone there this year, you're the Bugs Island legend. Brad even tried pulling the plug out of his boat, but it didn't work for him.
Did you guys had a tournament there, Bugs?
Yeah, there was open there.
Oh, was there? There's been so many opens. I've lost track of where all of them were. When was that one? What?
It was in like May or something.
Okay, yeah.
June or May, long time ago.
Yeah,
that was a cool place. Tell us about that a little bit.
It was just I sort of lucked out in that tournament with the weather because it was an October tournament, and there was just happened to be a hurricane that came up the East Coast there during the week or 2 weeks before our tournament there. And it flooded out Bugs Island. I mean, normally you don't get high water in October in any lake. And I didn't know anything about the place. So the first day of the practice, the water was dropping super fast. And it was probably 5 foot high when we got there. And I caught a pretty good bag on the lower end flipping bushes in practice. But the water was dropping so high that they were leaving those bushes because it was clear water and there wasn't much water in them. And I only caught like 9 pounds the first day, and I was like in middle of the pack somewhere, and I didn't have anything else to try the second day. So I said, man, I'm just going to go up the river. I've never seen it before, but I figured the water would be dirty and there might be some more shallow fish in the bushes and the dirty water. And I ran up to the back of one of those creeks. I'd never even seen it before with my paper map on my lap, flasher. We didn't have GPSs back then. And I got to the back of the creek and there was this bridge, and the water, there was only like maybe, 12 or 15 inches of water between the top of the bridge and the water. And I looked back underneath there and it was full of willow trees. I knew nobody had been back in there in 2 weeks because the water was so high. It was over the bridge sort of. So I said, man, if I can just get this boat down, 6 or 8 inches, or, I could probably get in there, because back then I had a Ranger 350, I think it was, and they set a lot lower to the water. So I leaned over there, pulled the plug out, flooded the whole boat, took off trolling motors, cowling, everything, and my partner and I pushed with our feet on the top of the bridge, and it scraping the boat, getting underneath there.
Like water over the batteries flooded?
Yeah, there was water everywhere up to the seats. And when I got on the other side, I just
Holy cow!
put the plug back in and bilged everything out. It took like 20 minutes to bilge it out. And then I just idled back in there and started fishing. And I got on this one little stretch of willows. And in about an hour's time, I caught 24 pounds flipping a jig. Ran out of there and was leading the tournament after that second day. And then went back in there every day of the tournament. The water was dropping so hard that I didn't have to pull the plug after that second day. And actually, Danny Brower came in there. He came in there that third day, I think, of the tournament.
When it had dropped enough.
Yeah, because it dropped enough to get in there. But it was just sort of a right place at the right time,
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's one for the books. It's it's talked about a lot, and it's a pretty damn good story.
Yeah,
it's too bad there wasn't one of those like boat jumps. You could have jumped the road and got back there. That'd probably been easier than draining the boat.
A post jump.
It wasn't that high, but it was man. But that's the thing. I mean, what are the odds of having a hurricane in October flood the lake out? So that was just a sort of a freak deal there.
Yeah, no, when she works, she works. Randy, you've been super vocal, not just on your YouTube channel, but kind of throughout your whole career. But you're known as the anti-live scope guy, for better or for worse. And actually last year, I don't know if you remember this, but yeah, I watch your videos. I get some entertainment value out of it, and I actually fueled the fire a little bit. I sent you one of my podcasts talking about an Opens pro who my buddy was fishing with when we were down at Lake Hartwell for the Open, whose live scope quit at 11 o'clock, and he quit the tournament.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, so I like following along and everything, and your YouTube channel's been growing, and I told this to my buddies a couple months ago that you probably have the single fastest growing YouTube channel in bass fishing.
It would be growing a lot faster, but on my analytics, I've lost 28,000 subscribers over the past 15 months by doing the live scope videos. It's like every time that I do a live scope video, I'll lose. People just get mad about it, that I'm dogging live scope. So that's just sort of the price you pay for it, though.
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, you got 109,000 subscribers now. So, I mean, you are, you're bringing eyes to the sport that weren't on it before. So that, that's for better or for worse, whether they agree with you or not, it's eyes on the sport, and it does help. So we'll plug your YouTube channel. Maybe you'll get a couple extra subscribers. It's Intuitive Angling with Randy Blaukat. But Randy, the reason we dragged you on here is because of your most recent video. Not your most recent, you put up about 4 a day. So I had to go back in the archives and find it. But it was the one about the Bassmaster Opens on Lake of the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to play just a clip real quick, just so everyone knows what I'm talking about. If you want to watch the whole video, you can find it at Randy's YouTube channel, but we'll just pump her here.
Sort of a wide-ranging talk today, guys, on sort of the state of professional bass fishing. How it's morphed into something that's sort of unrecognizable a little bit. And then one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is you guys see the thumbnail. That's the thumbnail of the top 10 anglers at the Bassmaster Open that's going on at Lake of the Ozarks right now. And I got looking at that. Guys, I don't know any one of those who those people are on there. It's like I wouldn't know them if I saw them in Walmart or something. And I found that strange that as connected as I am to professional fishing, that there would be that many anglers like in the top 10 of a Bassmaster event that I have no clue that they are. So I sort of want to get into a broader topic on.
So we got to get your take on that, Randy, because that struck a lot of chords with a lot of guys. Myself,
there was actually two of those guys. They made comments on the things like they were mad that I didn't know who they were, and it's like I didn't know. There are so many tournaments and so many fishermen that I just have lost track, and I've heard of some names, but I can't equate the name with the face a lot of times. So when I looked at that picture, I didn't recognize anybody that was on there. That was the point of the video.
Right, but it's an open series.
Yeah, but still, the opens used to have a lot of hammers in them. I mean, a lot of the veterans and well-known guys used to fish opens. I guess some of them still do, but probably not as much since they divided up into the two divisions this year.
Right. And then you go on in your video, I'm not going to play it, to say, you compared it to the LPGA, and well, we can play it. You got time, hey?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Okay. We're plugging your
Professional
channel here.
Golf circuit has sort of went downhill a lot in recent years. Is that very thing happened with them? It's like there got to be so many new faces in the sport that came about every single week that the fans lost interest in it because there wasn't any people that they could relate to or follow for year after year after year. There was such an influx of new people and such a turnover that their ratings just tanked because of that. And it's sort of
so
we're going to see a little bit.
You want to talk about that a little bit? Like maybe I'll give you a chance to explain it a little bit. Because
I was sort of
and I'll cut
equating
you
that.
off here, but like a lot of people look at thumbnails, and I get it, Randy. I'm a YouTuber too. You got to clickbait it. It's part of the game. But we just want to give you a chance to break it down a little bit.
Yeah, the LPGA reference was, the ratings on that have just tanked over the past 10 years because there's been so many new faces and there was no established stars that they could tune in week after week, and as a result, the ratings went down, ad revenue went down, and I sort of equated that a little bit to not just the Bass Opens, but a lot of the AAA circuits, because if you look back to how many more circuits are now available, in the sport versus 30 years ago, it is like a different universe out there, and it waters down so many different elements of the sport. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's the reality of the situation. It waters down the ability for people to stand out. It makes it a lot more difficult to stand out, and that's why tournament performance anymore is irrelative to most sponsors. It's all about social media because everybody's a tournament angler. Everybody considers himself a pro. You got all the MLF stuff. You got all the Bassmaster Opens, the Elite Series, the Bass Pro Tier, all of their BFLs. You got NPFL. You got these regional stuff. You got local stuff. And the endemic part of the industry is simply not big enough to support that. So as a result, it has become extremely difficult to create a legitimate, solid sponsor base anymore in professional fishing compared to what it was in what I consider the golden years, which was about 1998 to 2004, where you could make some bank in the sport from sponsors. And you simply can't do that anymore. That's the evolution of the sport. It's turned into now where professional bass anglers have been morphed into influencers that just happen to fish. Now, if you're a marketing manager, for any particular company out there, I don't care if it's endemic or non-endemic, you can win the Bassmaster Classic 3 years in a row and simply not create the same amount of impressions as some 25-year-old kid that's got a big social media following. And that's the change that we have seen as a result of more anglers in the sport. That's sort of in a nutshell a little bit.
So you think the door should just be closed and the elites are the elites and one or two trickle in every year? Is that kind of where you're going with this? Because I listened to it a couple times and I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I don't totally understand it. Like what would you do if it were up to you? But just talking Bassmaster between the Opens and the elites.
Okay, in a perfect world, I would model it more after like the Major League Baseball, the NFL, and that type of stuff, where you have one focused main circuit out there that basically legitimizes or defines what it is to be a professional. And if you're a professional baseball player, you play in the major leagues. There's not 20 different offshoots of professional baseball out there. And it was like that for many years up until FLW came along. Prior to 1997, we sort of had that a little bit. But after FLW came along, the entire game changed out there. And, you can still have, opportunities for anglers to compete. I mean, there was even back then. But as far as being defined and being a definitive professional bass angler, I just think the sport probably would have been better off in the eyes of the public and opportunities for the people that could get to that level if we had one circuit that defined it all. And you could have, different circuits out there, but they can't all just bleed into each other, sort of like they are right now.
Okay.
And
so you think too many names dilutes it and takes away from
well, that and
anglers?
it does dilute it. It dilutes the opportunities for the anglers, because let me give you an example here. When I started, my first year on the circuit was 1986, and the circuit was it started in the fall of 85 and it went to the spring of 86. That's the way Bass used to do it. The entry fees were $600 per tournament, Bassmaster Invitationals. That was it. That was the pro circuit, the Bassmaster Invitationals. I saved up for 3 years to save up my entry fee monies, mowing lawns and that type of stuff, living in my mom and dad's basement, 23 years old. And I was able to fish that circuit the first year at the tour level on that. You cannot do that now. It's physically impossible. So if I was in the same financial situation I was when I was 24 and I wanted to be a tour level professional, you can't do it. It's physically impossible. You cannot. There's no way a 23-year-old kid can come up with $50,000 in entries, $150,000 worth of boats.
And sorry to cut you off. We're going to get into that. I'm just talking faces in the sport, and just based on this section of your video, I got one more clip to play you.
Sure.
This is from Mercer's podcast you did under a year ago.
Do you think it would have been better if they didn't change if it stayed the way it was? Well, there's a lot of things I would have changed a little bit. I think that, they need to have 3 different divisions, and the qualifiers need to come off of every division. But I think there should be 20 qualifiers off of each division that goes to the Elite Series. I think there's way too many people that are in the Elite Series that shouldn't be there performance-wise. And if you have that 20 angler turnover every year, then you constantly have.
So, Randy, that's flying directly in the face of your last video. You're saying you want 60 new faces in the Elite Series each year.
Yeah, what are you talking about as far as the requalification for it? I'm talking about.
No, so that podcast was recorded right around the time of Bassmaster's decision to go from the 3 divisions to having to fish all 9 to qualify.
Right.
And you said that you think it should remain 3 divisions, but have the top 20 from each of those divisions go to the elites to find the best anglers and the best talent.
Yeah, that's just, there's no perfect answer for it. You can theorize and debate and brainstorm on how to do it, but the bottom line, what I'm talking about, is the fact that once FLW came along in 1997, it watered down all that and it made it more difficult to stand out. Now you can talk about, as far as the criteria, to who's in the Elite Series or who's not in the Elite Series, that's a different conversation. But when you look at the big picture on where we were, like in 1995, 1994, when Bassmasters were the whole Bob Cobb, the most popular period of it, versus now, I think that is a lot of the reason why, it's changed so much and made it more difficult to make a living in the sport.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. The payouts are the same as they were back then, and most people are just playing for each other's money, and that's kind of been the reality since the.
It's not just the payouts; it's the sponsorship dollars. Back in right around 2000 or the early 2000s, there was a lot of people making 6-figure incomes from sponsors alone, and I would think that is probably a pretty rare scenario now, unless you have somebody out there that's connected through some non-endemic company, which there are more opportunities to that. But there's not as many people that can say that they rely completely on the fishing industry to subsidize their tournament fishing like there was before. And like I said, that's just an evolution of more tournaments, more opportunities for anglers, more anglers out there. But I think that one of the reasons that professional bass fishing has not gained the legitimacy that it deserves is I think we fragmented ourselves. Just like I go back to the whole thing. What I think there just needs to be one circuit. Yeah, there's different ways to qualify for that circuit and different formats to get into there. I'm not, we can talk about that in a separate conversation, but I just think that having the Bass Pro Tour, the Bassmaster Elite Series, NPFL circuit, and all that type of stuff, nobody knows what a pro is anymore. What is a professional angler other than somebody just calls himself a pro angler? We don't have any type of governing, body that says you're a pro angler or not. And back, we tried to get this going back in the early 90s.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but if you make the Bassmaster Elite Series, I don't think anyone can argue that you don't have, the qualifications to be there. You have to qualify for it. It's not like the Opens where you just pay. It's not like how the FLW Tour was where you just pay. You don't get kicked out. Once you're in the elite, like you have to make your way to the elites, and you have to achieve results to stay there.
Right, but here's the thing about the elites: they bounced around so much on qualifications. Because in 2005, I got an invitation to fish the Bassmaster Elite Series, and I chose to stay with FLW simply because of my sponsor conflicts. I would have lost my title sponsor if I would have went to Bassmaster. And as a result, there's a lot of people that still to this day, from that 2005 decision, got into the Elite Series. And then Bass had some different qualification structures where they took the top 3. So some guy just had 3 good tournaments, got in it. Sometimes they went down to 12 or 15 down the list. Then Bassmaster invited about a dozen people over that had no qualifications, have never even fished Bassmaster, just to invite them over back when that MFL split was. So there's never been one criteria to qualify when the elites. And there's also, they have the Legends exemptions in there. So, the qualifications from that standpoint, they don't have to qualify every year if you have a Legends exemption. So there's never been one clear-cut way to make it. It changes constantly.
Yeah.
And I think it's undermined it a little bit over the years.
Yeah, I think it's kind of planed out now. It's pretty black and white, other than the Legends exemptions, that there's even a point system for them now. So, based on performance, it's they can't just hang out forever.
That's sort of a gray area. I don't know how much they enforce that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned the finances part. Your video kind of caps off with you essentially calling anyone who makes it, saying they don't have responsibilities, independently wealthy or wealthy families, I think was the definition. So what are your thoughts there? Do you think it's just purely elitist now, or where are you coming from there?
Compared to back when I started in the 80s, it has become an elitist sport, because you simply cannot do that unless you are way above the median income level. I mean, I'm not saying it's physically impossible to do that, but okay, let's say, for example, you're a 21, 22-year-old kid that dreams about being a pro fisherman on the tour level. I'm not talking about on the other level out there. It's like, how do you get that type of income and that type of bank that it takes to compete on that level, unless you have some other sources of income? And back before, you didn't have to have that. I was a perfect example. I didn't have that and was able to scratch and claw my way into it. But now it's just it's impossible to do so. And that's why I talk about the things about LiveScope I don't like is it creates this, this financial disparity amongst anglers, where some people can afford to have $20,000 worth of electronics and other guys can't. You see it out there all the time.
Well, I mean, that's a difficult conversation. And, when I saw your thumbnail with my face on it, I was leading the tournament at the time you put up that video. Randy, I had to quit basketball in high school. I was so poor. I'm the furthest person traveling regularly back and forth to each of these events. Okay. I'm currently sitting in 10th overall. I had to work my ass off. I had to win local tournaments, squirrel that money away, keep working, grinding, doing the YouTube thing, podcast, everything. You just add work, and it is achievable. I'm not saying that it's achievable for me, but you don't have to look very far. 2021 Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Seth Feider, broke his shit, living on a couch, almost ready to quit, wins AOI, and now he's got a cult following. He's a staple in the sport. Gussie, Bassmaster Classic champion. I worked with Gussie's dad at the jail not very long ago. We had the same paychecks. He didn't get his way paid. He worked. Brandon Palaniuk used to live in a trailer. Kyle Welcher was on the list to go to nursing school. Gerald Swindle used to pound nails together. Matt Robertson, Brad's literally sitting in his trailer right now. All these guys made it. They're the single most relatable anglers in the sport because they came from that background. So in your video, you're discouraging anyone unless they have family money. You're saying, you outright say it, do not pursue this.
I think that's an exception to the rule. I
just listed 8 of them that I just came up with off the
I'm
top
not
of my
saying,
head.
And I'm not saying it can't be done, but what are their expenses now? I mean, on the Elite Series. I mean, if you sat and calculated what your annual expenses are to fish, plus what it costs you to live at home, what are you talking about there? How much money is that?
Randy, they wouldn't be doing it if they were losing money. They're doing fine. Maybe it's changed where you don't just have to fish up or show up and fish just purely 6 tournaments a year, and that's your whole job. Like, you've got to, do seminars and shows and everything that comes along with it now. And so you should. It's your full-time job.
I'm not saying that you can't do it. What I'm saying is the reason I discourage it.
You just said it was impossible.
No, I didn't say it was. Yeah, it is impossible to fish at the tour level unless you have money. Where are you going to get $50,000 worth of entry fees? You got to have it. You got to have. Yeah, but okay, then you fish those tournaments, and then you got to come up with another $50,000 at the end of the year. You got your
Randy, if you're born to be a professional angler, if you should be at that level, you're going to make some money fishing tournaments. If you don't, you should not be at that level for an extended period of time. You've made an entire career, a 30 plus year career as a professional angler, and you're always taking shots at the industry and at the layout when you've done it. You've achieved it without banger results.
That's not the point we're talking about here, because the way that I did it was not the same as it is now. I didn't do it in 2023. I mean, the entry fees were far less, the expenses were less, the payouts were greater, the opportunities for the anglers were greater. What I'm saying now is in 2023, it is extremely difficult to do what so many anglers did back from about 1989 to 2000. The opportunities are just not there.
It should be extremely difficult to fish for a living.
No, but how old were you back in 1995?
6.
See,
you did not, that you're from a different generation.
I grew up fishing in 1995. I started in 95.
Okay. In what circuit? What were you fishing?
I was just fishing local, and then I had to stay home and work because I had 2 kids, and now I'm chasing it. But I think what you're trying to prove is, back in 95, there was a fraction of the anglers there are now. Obviously, there's going to be more money to be paid out. And fishing was fairly, back then, like tournament angling was a big deal, where now it's kind of diluted in some aspects of it. But part of our job as anglers is to grow the sport, and it has been growing and getting bigger. Obviously, the money is not as easy to come by, but there's a lot more people taking out of the pot, which is unfortunate. But to tell kids that they shouldn't chase their dreams, that's kind of,
well, I'll give you one example. I had this one kid that has been communicating with me on and off for the past couple of years. He's 18 years old, lives in North Carolina, from a single family parent. He lives with his mom. His dad left his parents when he was little. All the dude wants to do is become a pro angler. That's it. That's all he wants to do. But he just doesn't think he ever can. He just doesn't have the resources to do it. They do not have the money even to have a boat out there. So you got a kid like that is just ate up with it and dreams about it. And then you have some other individual that I'm not taking anything away from them that has the financial resources and has all the opportunities presented to them where they don't have a financial distraction. That is what creates this unlevel playing field that we're talking about, which shouldn't exist, because if you were a professional basketball player or a baseball player,
you have to have money to get there.
Can you imagine say, oh, you can't, I don't care, if you can hit a ball, 375, feet, you don't have the money to do it. So that's one of the things that sort of messed up about our sport is just the financial disparity end of it. I see it all the time. I have people messaging me all the time. How do I get sponsors? How do I get into the sport? I can't do it. I don't have any money, all the time.
Get to work.
And
get a job.
Nobody handed us, like, no one said, hey, have at her here. Like, I don't think an 18-year-old should have an opportunity to try to fish for a living. Like, you have to prove yourself at home, accrue your tournament earnings. If you're not winning enough in tournaments to give you a boost, then you shouldn't be going there anyway.
Okay.
So, and then this 18-year-old kid clicks on one of your videos and then just throws his damn ugly stick in the creek.
Now, let me clarify this a little bit. Did you happen to see that example I used at the Bassmaster Open at Lake Livingston 3 years ago about the two people I saw at the ramp there?
No.
This is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. And everything we've just discussed sort of boils down to this one situation. I was pulling the boat out there at that Bassmaster Open, and I pulled up on top of the ramp, and this truck pulled up in front of me. It was this tricked out, brand new Ford F-250 diesel. Looking like it come right off the showroom. It had all the aftermarket tires, lift kit, the Iron Cross bumpers, all that type of stuff. Brand new Ranger Z521, 5 grafts on it, not a scratch anywhere on it. And this probably 18-year-old kid walks out of it, and that was his rig, And then I pull up into the campground right around it, and there's another guy in there. He's probably in his early 20s. He's got like this beat up truck that looks like a 1995 model. He's got like some Challenger bass boat with like a 5-inch graph on it. He was in the tournament too. This is what I'm talking about. This sport has got it discriminates financially as far as the opportunity that presents. And I'm not saying you can't do it, because if you're willing to give up everything, if you're willing to sacrifice relationships, not have all the responsibilities that come with normal people, and you want to, just live like a hermit, you can do it. I'm not saying you can't, but it is not as easy right now to do that as it was when I did it in there. And I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation. And I just don't like it because there's a lot of people that just cannot do it like they did before.
Yeah, but you're also saying that many people shouldn't be able to do it because at the top level, it's unrecognizable. So if every 18-year-old with a 95 and a Challenger bass boat could make it, then there's going to be 20,000 people that you can't, you really won't recognize anyone now.
Well, and that's the point of what we're talking about. It's like it goes back to this whole thing. There's no clear-cut criteria what a pro angler is in order for them to develop a stable of a worthy sponsors that they should have. I mean, if you're a professional angler and you've reached the top level of the sport, I mean, you should be compensated for that. And it was at one point. It's not like that anymore.
Well, there's a lot of I'll use you as an example. Maybe there's a 19-year-old that needs sponsor deals, but the marketing budget's tied up because they've got a YouTuber that hasn't fished a FLW or a national tour trail since 2019. And you've got the budget tied up and they're sitting there with their 95 and can't afford entry fees. It's an imperfect system, but and Randy, I can handle your live scope videos. I can listen to them all day long. I eat that up. But when you go out of your way to straight up tell the future generation of this sport, if you're not rich, you can't fish.
No, did you hear? You missed the point. The last part of my video.
Well, that's why we've got you on here, because I'm really trying to make sense of it. And
at the very end of the video, I clarified it and said it's not impossible. I said if you're willing to do this, that, and I listed the sacrifices you had to make. yeah, you can
He
make
said
it.
you can't have a mortgage, you can't have a family, you can't have a wife, and you have to come from family money or whatever. I've got all those things, Randy.
No, I said if you listen back to it, it says if you want to make it and you do not have the resources to do that, you basically have to be willing to have no social life, no girlfriend, no wife, live in your truck. I mean, all this stuff that you got to scrimp and scrape by, and most people don't want to do that.
Well,
Then they don't belong, though. I mean, that's how it works. Like, you got to sacrifice if you want something.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but what I'm saying is that it's not like it was before, as far as the opportunities that existed out there.
I don't
Overall,
think it'll ever be like it was before. You did grow up in the golden age of it, and the rest of us are trying to get by now.
yeah,
But,
it is.
I mean, if we keep looking at the past, we might as well be Amish, for God's sake.
Well, ultimately, what it is the competition has made it where the people that are able to sustain it year after year after year do have financial safety nets. Because even though, take for example,
or they catch them.
Well, no, yeah,
That's
the thing
that's
about
the
it.
difference maker.
But here's the
If
problem:
catching bass fixes your problems.
You might get on a roll. Somebody like you're talking about may struggle. They got to be able to fish at whatever level, but they are literally 1 or 2 seasons away from getting kicked out of there. Because let's say, for example, you get into the Bassmaster Elite Series and you've scraped together and you've got your entry fees in there and you got everything taken care of. If you go for like 2 or 3 tournaments in a row without making a check, you basically have to win a tournament to actually come out where you make any type of a profit by the end of the year. So you're only 1 or 2 bad tournaments away from your career ending, even if you've worked for 6 or 7 years to get to that point. There's no security with it.
If you're a football player, basketball player, hockey player, and you don't perform, they kick you on the street also with no safety net. I mean, Granted, they make a ton more money when they're there, but obviously they have to perform or they're not allowed to stay either.
Well, guys, I said I've done this for 40 years, and I can't tell you how many broken relationships, divorces, stresses, anxiety levels, just bitterness, resentment that has come from people that tried to dive in and decided they wanted to be a professional angler without knowing the reality of the situation. And that video that I was talking about, I wanted to lay out the reality of the situation. And that's why at the end of the video, I said, if you're willing to do all this type of stuff, go for it. But you have to understand what you're coming up against. And a lot of people don't. They don't understand. If you got a wife or a girlfriend or something, they don't understand what being away from home 150, 200 days a year is going to do to their relationship. You need to know what that is. You need to know if you have 1 or 2 bad seasons and you lose your house because of it. There's a reality in this sport that gets sugar coated, and that's what I've tried to do, is just lay it out to everybody.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. We've all seen it. That's kind of the good thing about the 9 event schedule. It gives you a heads up. It's not glamorous, but I mean, you sit here and throw stones at it, but you've been doing it for over 30 years. Why didn't you just quit?
I love it. I love fishing. I love bass fishing. I love tournament fishing. I love Bassmaster. Everything that I've tried to do is like try to bring you a reality to the situation, address it or acknowledge a problem, and try to figure out a solution to that problem. And I don't do this just to make people miserable or to dog Bassmaster or MLF out there. I mean, I'm opinionated. I've got some opinions that I've formed over doing this since 1984. I mean, I just try to use that format to express them. Some people love it. I got a lot of people that agree with me completely. I got people out there that think I'm an idiot over it. But that's the whole thing. If you have an opinion on anything, you're going to get criticized. You cannot be all things to all people. And the main thing I try to do in the sport is just I try to be real to people, because I've done it. I've been there. I've sacrificed. I've had the blood, sweat, and tears, and the frustrations, and the joys, and the exhilaration that comes with it. This sport will test you emotionally more than anybody can even imagine. If you live in the trenches like myself and a lot of the guys have for 30 years, you will literally experience every aspect of the human emotion available. It's going to happen. A lot of people can't handle that. They can't deal with that. So unless you're prepared for that, it's probably not something somebody wants to get into.
Yeah, but I mean, Randy, you're calling professional bass fishing the trenches. There are people trying to get there right now that have literally been in the trenches. Like one of our buddies is an ex-Marine. He was doing the opens. So when people like that, come from a more dynamic background than someone just, with dad's credit card moving on through, then yeah, it might seem like the end of the world. But to someone like myself, I've been as a correctional officer since I was 19. I've seen it all. I've had to go through everything. So you can't really call it the trenches. Like it's bass fishing, Randy.
It's not life or death. That's not what I'm talking about. But it is people's lives. And the thing about it is it not only affects your life, it affects everybody's life around you. That's why I mentioned in there that professional bass fishing is a very selfish occupation. It is. I mean, you're dealing with, being ate up with it to a point that if you're not ate up with it, you can't compete. And when you get ate up with something and obsessed with something like you have to be in professional fishing, it is going to affect other areas of your life. And I just want people to realize that before they jump into it and lose everything they have, because I have seen it over and over again over the past 30 or 40 years. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And
I believe you have. I mean, we've seen it too. There's
seen lots of it.
But there's, it's a professional sport. It's not made to have a safety net. It's not made to be a constant career. It's a high level entertainment sport, and that's what it is.
It's the same thing as gambling, because professional bass fishing, it has the same type of endorphin release, and it creates the same type of emotions as losing or winning in gambling. It's an addiction that comes with that. And everybody that is a professional bass angler is addicted to that emotional rush. And sometimes that emotional rush is the negative side of it. Even though you don't like it, it still makes you feel, it makes you alive. And there's nothing out there in life that makes you feel like that. The professional fishing does, the highs and lows with performance, when you have everything on the line. If you've got everything on the line and you're at a tournament, and if you don't finish in the top 10 in that tournament, you can't make your mortgage payment or your house payment, then that is what stress is like there. And what I tell you, another thing that I've noticed is, like, just over the past, when I started out, everybody stayed in flea bag motels, $20 a night motels. People drove junky vehicles all the time. I don't see that anymore. Everybody I see is like staying at, Comfort Inn or Holiday Inn and driving a truck that's new or 2 or 3 years old. It wasn't like that back in the 80s and 90s. So there's been a transformation in that particular income range that allowed people to do that.
Well, that's just the world, though. Like, back 20 years ago, most families only used one vehicle, or 30 years ago, they used one vehicle. 12-year-old kids didn't have a $2,000 cell phone in their pocket. That's just been the progression. So to hang on to the old school and say you should be sleeping in a flea bag motel when you don't need to is a difficult comparison.
Myself. I camped out for a dozen years. That's the way to go. The best thing.
Yeah. Well, we'll move off this quick. You mentioned the live scope disparity thing. The last two tournaments we stayed with our buddy Louis Minetti, college bracket champion, absolute beauty of a human. He won that college bracket against, $100,000 rigs with every, scope pointing every which way. He won it his way. Seats look like they got attacked by a damn badger. No front graphs. We've been staying with him for the last couple derbies, and he's a great guy. He's a great angler, and he's facing the reality of what we're talking about now. He won the package where you could fish all year and have a truck and a boat, and next year he's not going to have that. So he's been trying to compete without forward facing sonar, and I had taken him out on the day before Ozarks. We went fishing together, just to have a good time. And I told him, I said, I'll teach you everything I've ever learned and everything I know about live scope, because you will not compete against these guys without it. And when you talk about getting rid of live scope to reduce disparity between anglers, that is the opposite direction of what I've seen. Like something like that is the only reason someone can come from so far away, go to a lake that's foreign to them, because the biggest advantage in fishing is home lake. It's not like going to someone else's golf course or something like that. You're going to their home lake. If you take someone's eyes away from them on the live scope and expect them to compete with someone out there who's been planting brush piles all year, buying waypoints, hiring guides, everything like that, you're going to see even more disparity. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that, because I am that person. I don't have time or money to pre-practice. I have responsibilities at home. I've never been anywhere in the US fishing. The first largemouth I caught this year in US competition was at Eufaula, Alabama for the first open. I'd be in last place in every tournament, not every tournament, but in a lot of them. So I really disagree with your take on that. And I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, that's called paying your dues, because every one of us had that same learning curve. It's like when I started on the circuit, I didn't know anything about Lake Okeechobee or any other tournament like that. I had to go there for like 3 or 4 years before I finally figured out how to catch fish down there. That is the dirt time that anglers put in, and that is one of the things that if you talk to some of the older anglers out there, that they have a problem with, is not basically doing that. It's not having to go through the processes as far as the learning curve. It takes time on the water in order to get where you can compete out there.
Well, you can only get time on the water with money. So if you're saying if someone saves up, they should have to go get their ass kicked for 3 or 4 years on a foreign lake. By then they're out of money. They're already going home. They're getting a job. That's it.
That's why you had back before, you had older anglers competing, because most of them were guides that transformed into tournament anglers, that you don't really have that much anymore.
Do you think that's best for tournaments if someone's a guide and the schedule happens to go to their lake every year and they catch them there and then survive the rest of the year?
Well, that was just the reality of the situation. That didn't happen all the time. Yeah, the locals did dominate and do well at some tournaments, but a lot of times they didn't. I mean, you heard this thing about the local advantage is a big curse. That happened a lot back then prior to live scope. But I've always admired the anglers out there that, like I said, put in their time in the water, paid their dues, learned season after season of understanding seasonal movements and seasonal patterns of fishing that took time. That's why that the whole thing about the creativity and your imagination is more important than your experience in the time in the water. Because if it was nothing but experience out there, then guys like Rick Clunn would still be unbeatable today. But that is the advantages a lot of people have in there that don't have that advantage in that time in the water, is just their creativity.
So what do you think happens when you're at a brand new lake? Let's take Watts Bar, for example. We were just there. No one's ever seen it before. A couple pre-practicers, whatever. A couple guys live on the TVA. So you show up, you drop your live scope at the ramp. Walk me through how you think it happens for a live scoper.
That's not even the point of the conversation, because the technicality part of it.
Oh, you're killing me, Randy.
No, it's not. I'm not saying
every time we put you in a corner, you say this isn't the conversation.
No,
we're
okay,
having.
You're probably coming from the point. It's like I'm not in a corner. I'm saying a lot of people say, oh, just because you see them on live scope, you can't make them buy. Everybody that have live scope, everybody would catch them. That's maybe true, but every freaking tournament's getting one with live scope to some extent, or 95% of them anymore. The conversation around live scope should not be centered around the fishing part of it. There's a bigger picture that most of the pro live scopers miss out on that. That's what I've been talking about on all my videos. I understand it's a great piece of technology. I understand it helps people catch fish. That's not debatable. It's all the other negatives that go with it.
I think it reduces the disparity between people trying to make it and playing against someone who has the opportunity to pre-practice it. If you took live scope away for the next tournament in the opens, we'd show up, there'd be 20 to 30 guys who had already spent 3+ weeks there, handful of other guys with a pocket full of waypoints they either obtained through buddies or bottom or whatever. They're gonna win, right?
Well, yeah, you can. That's an easy fix, though. You have the organizations put a longer off limits and then crack down on any information gathering.
Yeah, but the off limits is only going to go so long.
Well,
you can't have it all year.
Don't the MFLs have it all? I mean, the Bass Pro Tier, isn't it all year on theirs?
The least is all year information.
Yeah, but that's not pre-practice. That's not off limits. That's just information.
Just information.
Randy, you're playing without live scope. You're playing you're taking away from the working man, quote unquote, even more. And I'm telling you, as a working man with live scope,
that's one. You're talking about one aspect of it, but you're ignoring the bigger picture of the long-term sustainability and what this looks like 10 years down the road. That is what you're saying. I understand that point in there, but that is like that is like irrelevant in the bigger picture of the future of the sport. And that's what I'm coming from. I'm coming from the position of the future of the sport, not what is going to benefit people individually.
Okay. Well, walk us through the bigger picture, the other.
Okay. At what, for you, since you live scope, at what point will have technology gone too far? What is your precipice on that?
I had this conversation last night. I mean, it's not topped out, but I'll use a flasher as an example. We use flashers for ice fishing. The first Lowrance fish locator came out in the 80s or whenever it was. Now the highest end Markham or Vexlar or anything like that, they're a little bit nicer, but the point is still the same. A live scope is at the point where you can already see further than you can physically cast. The target separation on bottom is already almost maxed out. There's very little that can hide. And, that's going to improve probably 10 to 15, maybe a little bit more percent over the next few years to where you'll be able to definitely tell species to species. But you don't use live scope, so you're not seeing it. Fish adapt. They adapt to it. You used to catch 70% of the ones you threw at. That number just kept going down and down and down and down. And now it's just part of the game where, some places you go in Texas, you might only catch 1%. So maybe like a live scope 360 or something like that'll come out.
Okay. What if technology advances to some point where it can, for whatever reason, you can activate or make fish more aggressive from some type of a sonar blip? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. At what point do you say we've got to cut this off? This is not fishing anymore. We've turned this into some commercial event. It's not sport fishing. For me, live scope was that point when you could actively see fish moving in front of you in real time and manipulate those fish based upon your lure movement. That was my point where it was too much. I think everybody has a point. And if you have unregulated technology in the sport and you got all these R&D departments trying to push this technology further and further ahead on a global scale, not just in the United States. I get people sending me messages all the time from Australia about how the Murray cod population is getting devastated by live scope. On a global scale, what is that going to do to our fisheries as more people get good with this technology and as it advances? That is the picture that a lot of people don't look at there, including the tournament organizations.
Yeah, but Randy, the fish just adapt to it. We do a lot of walleye fishing up here. You used to just go and catch. If you were the first guy with live scope, you could fill the bucket, and I had a legitimate concern. Same as crappies. It was like this is going to be a bad thing for the fish.
Well,
Like,
they're not adapting to it too much because every tournament still gets one on it. I mean, 95% of them. So they're not adapting too much to it.
But it's no different than throwing a 20,000 stumps throughout a tournament. Like, you only get bites on 10% of the stumps. It's just like casting at 20,000 fish. If only 10% bite it, what's the difference?
There's a huge difference. It's not even close. But what happens is, like the way that you say you approach your tournament fishing, that you just go out and put your live scope down, is like, what about understanding the nuances of bass fishing, the migrations and the seasonal movements? And
that still happens on
movement.
live scope.
It does not happen like that because you're using artificial intelligence. You're not
Artificial
there up close,
intelligence.
intimate with the fish on there. You're not having to do the same thing that was required without that technology to catch those fish, because you wouldn't even have known those fish were there to fish for them unless you saw them on the live scope.
It's no different than idling over them years ago with a flasher or a paper graph.
Yeah, but that's for one thing, that wasn't live imaging, and number two, you don't even know exactly what species they were a lot of times.
You don't with live scope either. I mean, a crappie looks just like a bass.
Okay, but back then, if that was the case, and everything would have been won offshore with flashers, and it wasn't. Most of the tournaments were won shallow target fishing. It didn't have the same domination back there. But
and you had half as many anglers on the water, or even less than that. Now, every lake you go to, not even tournament anglers, every lake is full of people.
It is. You're right, and that's what even makes it more disturbing is you have more people that are acquiring this technology and getting more adept with it, and it's going to have an impact on the fisheries. And you guys, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is how many people still keep and eat bass that they catch with that. I've talked to them this year. I see them at the ramps every time, and that's just the one little microcosm of the stuff that's going around all over globally on this.
Live scope makes it harder on the bass eaters because the fish are becoming more educated. It's harder for Bubba Booey to just go sling a spinnerbait at the bank and fill his bucket.
Yeah, he's
now
I talked to 3 of them that were
bass eaters aren't really going to be that proficient on live scope, Randy.
I talked to 3 of them at Table Rock this year that were cleaning out limits of Kentucky's that had caught them live scoping, laughing about it. So it goes on. I mean, it does.
Well,
but the thing about fishing, what I think a lot of people miss on this, and a lot of the people that are like techie people, that you have got to have some mystery in the sport. If you don't have this whole aspect of the unknown and what's around that next corner that you don't know about, you lose so much of what fishing's about. And most people, they don't give a crap, they don't give a heck about the aesthetic part of fishing. And that's one of the things that I really have a problem with, is how we're losing that. We're losing the value of the aesthetics that come with fishing, the tradition that comes with it. And it's just, and it's not just me. If you look through my comments on my videos, you'll see, real obvious what people's viewpoint is on it.
Yeah, but you do this a lot, and you throw out numbers like 95% of tournaments are won on live scope. You say 90% of people hate live scope, and you're basing it off a totally biased sample base. Those 28,000 subscribers that left you would have had a different opinion.
So obviously,
I've watched a lot of your videos, and you pull from this biased sample every time.
There's still a larger percentage, though, of the people that are against that.
So, Randy, let me ask you this.
Swindle had that poll that he did on it.
That was the most biased sample I've ever seen. He asked his fans who have been listening to his opinion for years what they thought about it. If I go to a trailer park in Alabama and ask them what their thoughts are on Donald Trump, I'm going to get a totally different answer than if I go to a 30-story building in New York and ask them their thoughts. Like your analytics are way flawed, and if you only had a couple hundred people watching it wouldn't be a big deal. But
I can only go by my analytics. That's the only thing I have to go by. So I do have to go by that.
You can go on DNR Creel surveys. Have you ever looked at those, or do you just throw these numbers out there?
For what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Creel
Well, you're always
surveys?
saying fish populations are decimated. You're saying Bassmaster's numbers are down. You're just basing this off your comment section.
They are down. Go
That
out and
was
try.
the biggest classic they've ever had this year, numbers wise,
That's a
and
classic.
ratings.
That's a classic. That's not
That's
a regular tournament
Bassmaster.
viewership.
That's Bassmaster. The Opens have had the biggest ratings they've ever had
As far
this
as
year.
well,
As far as viewership,
in the live scoping tournaments, because I know that the St. Lawrence and the St. Clair and all that weren't.
Yeah, I mean, have the smallmouth tournaments ever had higher view counts?
Well, I mean,
does your
do you think
comment section say anything about that?
Would you rather watch some guys glued to the screen drop shotting, or would you want to watch Keith Poche jump a sandbar to get into backwater? If you're a viewer, which is more exciting?
I'd rather watch Keith Poche jump into a backwater, but that doesn't mean it's safe. What if he had a co-angler in that tournament? Like,
Well,
we're not going to get into this, but there's a lot of things I'd rather see. I'd rather see a shotgun start off takeoff and 225 boats racing down the lake, as long as I'm not in it. There's a lot of safety concerns and logistics that just aren't reality. And I do agree that the personality of people while they're doing the boring ass live scoping on TV needs to be elevated to grow the sport. And that's my biggest concern, is that it'll get so boring that it'll just fizzle. But that's something that's got to be addressed. And like I said, I agree with some of the things you say, and that's one of them. But I mean, you base your live scope argument on sustainability a lot of the time. Pressure is increasing. A lot of people know how to catch fish that they didn't know before, right?
Yeah.
So you make your living off YouTube. YouTube teaches people how to catch fish, where to catch fish. People that never would catch fish before. So how can you stand on your high horse telling people live scope's bad? It's bad for the fishery, when you have 100,000 subscribers and thousands and thousands of people watching your videos, becoming educated on specific skills that they wouldn't have had access to prior to YouTube. So
I teach them how to fish, not video game fish. There's a difference with that.
Catching is catching, Randy. And if they're eaters, they're eaters, and
it's not the same. It's how you play the game. It is. And that's what a lot of live scopers don't understand, is how you play the game. And when you live scope, you take away so much of the intrinsic value of fishing. You do.
Do you think the intrinsic value of fishing comes from, on a Friday night before you go fishing on Saturday, having to pane through some YouTube videos to learn how to catch them?
It's not.
How's that any
fishing.
different?
If people think fishing is about catching, then they don't understand what fishing is about.
But your tip videos and your lake breakdowns are all about catching.
What do you mean?
I don't see any videos of blue herons or.
That's not that. You can't equate lake map breakdowns that show people seasonal patterns where bass are certain times of the year to live.
My live scope doesn't show me that.
That's not the. What are you talking? That doesn't even make any sense. What are you talking about,
Randy? I don't think this is going to go any further. I don't want to hold you up any longer. I appreciate you sticking around for this. I know we put you through the gauntlet a little bit, and that's
well, everybody has an opinion on it. I'm not. I mean, you guys love bass fishing. I love bass fishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about it. We can have a respectful and civil debate on there. You don't agree with my perspective. I respect that. I don't agree with yours. I got different perspectives, but you still love to fish. And that's the thing that we got to remember out there.
I agree with you. And I do appreciate your opinions throughout the years, whether I agree with them or not, because that is how change is affected. If everyone's a yes man and goes along with it, we won't see any improvements. So we'll end it on that common ground. And good luck at Lake of the Ozarks tomorrow.
Yeah, good luck. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Okay, I appreciate it. And I'll keep Bass and Live Scope on the video. So
all right, we'll be watching.
We'll be watching.
We'll talk later, guys.
Good luck, Randy. Take care.
Good luck.
Holy shit.
What
Where's
did
Kyle?
you do, Brucey?
I was just talking.
Oh my God, where do you think Kyle is? He probably went to bed.
He's
Oh,
punching
there he's
holes.
coming.
Just unbelievable.
Brad, it's all you. I gotta get a drink of water.
Dude,
Okay, go get a drink, Brucey. Me and Kyle run the show.
Brad, I just sat here for an hour and 15 minutes. That was the most excitement I've ever had.
My heart is racing. I mean, I love Blaukat and his outlook on life,
Me
but
too. No, you know what's funny, Brad, is I actually reached out to him when he posted that that top 10, like, who are these guys? Because I was like, hey man, like, honestly, like, I'm Kyle, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, no, seriously, because I respect him, and
yeah,
I do. I respect him. I obviously watched like Bassmaster's Bugs Island on his and I respect him as an angler, as a person. I think that sometimes I disagree with certain opinions, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the common ground of loving to catch fish and, like, you know, being excited about fishing and, you know, grinding through the sport that is very brutal. And he is right. It is a very, you know, a challenging industry to be in. And so, you know, I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like, I'm actually curious, like, off the record, like, I want to pick your brain on your thoughts on like sort of all the comments that you say. Just for my, like, understanding of, like, where he's coming from, like the root of all that he discusses, right? Like, why does he have these extremely strong opinions on not only live scope? That's, I understand that, but you know, the what Brucey was saying about you have to be rich and, like, the cuts and all that.
well, I understand where he's going with it. I take offense to a few things, like
I agree.
telling kids that, you know, you shouldn't do this. Well, maybe that 17-year-old or 18-year-old he's talking about or talking to you and telling not to do it, maybe that kid was Seth Fighter one day, right?
Well, I was gonna say maybe that's the next Brandon Polinick.
Yeah, you never know. And that kid that fights his whole life to make it there, like all of us are, like me and Brucey are, like you are, we're gonna appreciate it way more, and we're gonna be way stronger at the end of it than if someone just gave us a credit card and gave us everything we needed to do. And you know, like, I can't choose how rich my parents are. You can't choose that.
Look,
I mean, good for them. Like,
that's the thing I wanted to mention is, like, I think a lot of people in this industry, and look, I saved up for a long time. I had this dream when I was like 8 years old, and I got a job. I was pumping gas in Cooperstown, New York, all summer, and I worked whenever I could. I got my guide's license. I did guide trips. I saved up a ton, and I saved up a good amount of money. And I was like, I went to my parents and I was like, hey, like, I want to get a bass boat. You know, the local club, Susquehanna Bass Association, they're in Cooperstown, New York. And I would, like, run down to the dock and they would teach me, like, how to rig a Texas rig, right? How to,
yeah.
you know, what a Carolina rig was, a crankbait, like the basics, right? And so, you know, I saved up and I got on the back of their boat. My first ever tournament, I fished out of a blue canoe.
The blue canoe.
Dude, I built an aerator. I wonder if maybe my mom and dad are watching or someone's watching. They can text a picture, but I was in a blue canoe. I built an aerator in the center, so it, like, screwed into the sides. And me and my buddy, Nick Wigglesworth, we literally fished a tournament out of this blue canoe. And, like, that was my start. And I saved long past that, and got, like, a 40 horsepower bass tracker, that, you know, it was probably like $12,000. I think I saved up did my parents give me $4 or $5 grand? Absolutely. Like, I'm not denying that. And if my parents gave me an unlimited credit card right now, I would say it. And I don't really, does it bother me that I don't necessarily have that? Maybe a little, but I don't judge. There's too many people out there judging people, thinking, oh, like, you know, it's not, you know, ethical or whatever it is that they have what I don't. But I mean,
They ain't never been offered the money.
They've never been offered the money, and
As
they don't
Walter would
realize that
say.
you still have to work really, really hard. You can't buy your way to the elites.
No.
You
Well,
can't.
back when Randy got in, you could, I guess.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of strong opinions.
Well, I just suck. I mean, I'm on the board for the SATTs. I'm very involved with high school and college angling. Do a lot of seminars for them, help out all our high school kids in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, that's the only time they're not staring at a screen or, doing God knows what. Like, I mean, I kind of take offense to it when he's like, you shouldn't go after your dreams. Like, these kids, like, fishing, saving some of these kids' lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of being a pro angler is leaving the sport better than you found it. And like the way he's going about it, he's not very eloquent about doing it. Like I understand he probably has good intentions, but he also is,
I'm not going to make a comment about Randy. I honestly am curious if he'll reach back out to me because I do want to have an off the record conversation and before I, make a judgment. But yeah, I think there's a whole lot of hatred right now in the industry without a lot of, not in the industry, sort of about the industry is probably a better way to describe it. There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions and they don't even know. Like I've got a ton of after like that tournament and like people know I live scope, right? Jamie, you live scope probably more than I live scope, but
nope. I'm a dock skipper now, bud.
But like I get messages on Instagram and people are like, like what I don't like live scope, like guys that I know, guys that I, maybe have chatted with a little bit. And my first question always is, do you have a live scope? Have you used one? Have you been on the boat with someone using one? And I'm not going to make up percentages. Majority of the time, they say no. And I say, well, before you make a judgment, try using it, try looking at it and see if it helps. Like, I want to know your opinion after using it, not just looking at the top level guy using it. If you watch someone, all those top level guys, Brandon Polinick, Gussie, any of these guys on the elites and on the opens, when you watch them, it looks easy. It does. And when you watch a major league,
when you watch me with it does not look easy.
What'd you say?
When you watch me with it, it does not look easy.
Right. Like you watch but the point is when you watch Tiger Woods hit a golf ball, it looks easy. Right. And it's like, oh, well, he has the best irons in the game. Like, really, you think that's the reason? I know that's a different comparison, but
that's pretty good though. Like it doesn't reflect. I mean, these guys at the top level right now in the elites, opens, winning tournaments with live scope, they put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. I'll guarantee you that. And it's no different than being able to skip a dock like Brucey. I mean, it took him 2 or 3 days to figure that out.
Yeah, especially that big old 3/4 ounce jig. That's a tricky one, dude.
Well, he kept banging them pretty hard to make sure the snakes weren't under there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a break.
Come on, yeah.
But it's good to have you on. We've been rolling with you all year. You're a buddy. I gave you a new nickname, Doc Talk.
Doc Talk.
All your buddies approve of it. Man, we don't know how you like the perception of how a person should mentally approach a tournament. You take that rule and bust her in half. Like you are the most high-strung, wired, brain's always going. I've asked you a few times, like, how did you figure this out? And it's crazy to see. And every takeoff, I don't know if you're going to get 0 or win. And you've beat me in every tournament this year except for one. and you just won the last one. And I'm like, I thought you're supposed to be cool, calm, and collective, and you have taken that.
He
And,
is
I mean,
the
Ike and
opposite of
Ellie's
cool, calm. Yeah, the
yeah,
opposite of what you're
yeah.
supposed to be.
Ike and Ellie pulled it off, and you're there. It's few and far between, but you're pulling her off with your approach. It's something else to see, man.
Yeah, no, it's pretty, and it comes with its negatives. Like you saw it at the Chesapeake Bay. I was so fired up, I could barely, hang, right? Like I couldn't even land a fish, and it's part, a lot of it's my personality. Like I'm just high strung, like I'm ready to go. I wake up in the morning, no coffee, boom, out of bed, get in the truck. I know someone texted me and said that Greg Hackney or someone was saying that I must drink like a ton of Monsters. Like, no, I just, that's how I'm wired. And I'm also wired to fish. And I think that having those two things on my side, like I can approach a lake and do a ton of different things on it. Like you were saying, like I'm running up the river, and this is why, and this will tie into why this tournament, I was like, I won this derby was because I was all over that lake. Like I was overwhelmed, as I'm sure a lot of guys were with that lake. There's 80,000 docks. There's tons of fishable water. Like, the whole lake's fishable. There were fish suspended out in the middle. And I sort of had a few zones, and like I just ran all over the lake and figured out 3 key areas, and just I thought Brucey, I really did think I was going to struggle. And Brad was like, "You sandbagger!" Like after day 1, and I was like, "No,
sandbagger."
Man." I was like, "No, man! Like I only got," and you know how the opens are. Everyone's sticking fish, so you can't really stick fish and feel that confident. Like, sure, if you get a ton of bites, you're gonna feel confident, but I wasn't getting that many bites, and it fit well. That tournament fit well for me, and yeah, no, I'm definitely high strung, dude. There's no doubt about it. I just love it. And then like, on top of my personality, Brad and Brucey, I just love fishing so much that like that first year, it actually hurt me how intense my dream is for this industry and this sport, because it brings like my normal intensity level and times it by 2, because I'm just so excited even just to be in the opens. Like when I roll out and launch my boat in practice, talk about fishing with anyone, whether it's a 10-year-old kid, I'm trying to, I signed the guy's hat after the tournament when I held the trophy. I'm just pumped up about it, like all the time.
Yeah, I feel like noticed. in the Bassmaster Classic this year, if you make it to day 3 and have a camera guy, you might just vaporize. Like that's how jacked up you are. Like poof, Kyle's gone.
But honestly, I'm a little nervous about it. Like if I make day 3, I'm a little nervous about it for sure.
Oh man,
and
talking you off the ledge and the bag line was unbelievable at that tournament. Like you had won by like, what'd you win by? 5 pounds or something?
I don't know. No, it wasn't 5 because was it Dice K?
Daisuke Kita.
Yeah.
I think it was
18, but he is in like 10.
Ones, dude.
It was a lot. And
it was a lot.
Looking at you, I was like, he needs 23 pounds. Like the biggest bag of the tournament is 1915. And you're like eyeballing everyone's bags, and you're just freaking. And it was like, dude, you got this.
Dude, I was talking to a lot of different people about it. Obviously, my phone was blowing up. My voice is kind of hoarse because of it, but it's just so surreal to me. Like until you've won, I always knew I could win, right? It's not that, but like it just feels so outlandish and
unattainable.
Unattainable, exactly. Like I never even remotely thought that it would happen until it does, and now since it has, and I've sort of let it sink in, but not really, because I'm trying to just get all the media done, get all the stuff that I have to get done out of the way, so I can just focus on Harris Chain. But I feel like a new level of confidence fishing these derbies. Like I only
you watched him bleed.
Yeah, like exactly. Like I'm telling you, I this is my 2nd year fishing all 9, And this year was a little bit easier because after year one, I sort of figured out the sponsorship and the sponsorship game and how I wanted to approach it. So I've been a little bit more financially secure this year. That helps, obviously. But I figured out how to relax a little bit more than I was last year. And I figured out sort of, there goes Brad. And you know, it's pretty wild. It's just a wild ride, this whole sport. And I can't.
Yeah, man, you got your hands full. You're doing the powerhouse thing. I needed to use you on day 2. That's not to do a full battery plug, but this legit happened. Powerhouse made a commitment to travel around with a bunch of batteries, and Kyle's the guy, and left his truck open, and my dumb ass didn't plug in my isolated 16 volt live scope battery. Sorry, Randy, cover your ears if you're still listening. And I had to, it lasted all the way up till 1 o'clock, and I had to go change it. And I was rooting through your truck, and there's batteries to the ceiling, and you had your like bed in there, and
the batteries, dude, the batteries, believe it or not, I was like, dang, like I have to lug all these things around. And then I was like, I slowly figured out that when I would pull over to like truck stop or like, you know, a safe like on off ramp off the highway to like sleep, dude, it's a nice little like cocoon that it creates. So like when I sleep in that bed, dude, I'm like, oh, like little like charge my phone up on the battery. So it's pretty awesome. And you know, when I was actually, it's funny, when I was driving home from that win, I was telling you, you know, when we were off air, like I was about to, because the bed's not ideal. Like it's comfortable, but it's not ideal. And so I'm like about to pull off to a truck stop after this win, and I like was so close, and I just thought, oh my God, I got 50 grand in my bank account. And I like scooted back into the left lane, pedal to the metal. I was like, you know, hotels near me, and like one popped up $180. I was like, send it. And I went right in, and it was cool. And you know, that's the cool thing about this sport is the highs and the lows. Like it's a pretty wild swing. Like, you know, after leaving the St. Lawrence, you know, it's funny. You were like, Brucey, you were like, let's go. Like,
I went home and bought a hot tub.
Yeah.
I literally did the next day. My back hurt so bad from those, like, even in the big lawn, it was just such a big ride and huge waves and scoping and everything like that. My back and neck hurt so bad. I was like, I got like 18 grand from this. I'm buying a hot tub. But then the next one, you're like, you know, you get 122nd at Watts Bar, like, you're eating gas station chicken wings and sleeping in your truck, boy.
Yep.
Didn't you get sick from those wings, Brucey?
Yeah, I never slept the night before day 1 of Watts Bar.
You're on the porcelain?
Oh, that's probably. Hey, I got a question for you too. So I took a video of you two in your beer chugging competition. Do you care if I post that?
Oh, is that a bad look?
Yeah, you chug a beer with 2 hands, and you had such supreme confidence at it that we put $100 on the table. That was the only way I made money at Watts Bar.
No, we put 80. I only had 80 cash.
Oh, I won 100 off the co-angler, Travis.
Yeah,
I won $200. I cashed a check in that derby.
Yeah, Travis got like I gave you a run for your money.
I was taking it easy because there was a spill rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lost some money. But that's fine. You still owe me money for one of them marinas.
I know. I do owe you. I think I owe you like $50 for the food.
Yeah.
I'm financially secure now for like the next maybe 6 months until
we got to tell this story. So Lake of the Ozarks loaded with like wicked restaurants and marinas. Every bay has a restaurant in it. Oh, so we're like, whatever. It's back to back. You know, tons of practice, tons of derby, and we're like, we'll just go for lunch for 45 minutes a couple days. And Kyle comes one day. We got Matt Robertson and Luminetti and everything. And Kyle hops out. Only restaurant we could find was like, you know, up top in some fairly nice place. Kyle walks in with no shoes.
Oh my
Zero shoes. All the way to the restaurant. We sit down and he goes, dude, I don't have a wallet either. Can you spot me? I was like, yeah, no problem, bud. I got you. Waitress comes around. Can I get 3 Arnold Palmers?
Dude,
Hey.
I'm a huge Arnold Palmer fan.
I know.
Hey, I bought him the burger the night before he won. I should be entitled to like a quarter or half of it.
No, I'll give you $100, Brucey.
100.
What about me? I
I'm
bought
not
you
worried
I
about
mean,
food the
that.
night before
Brad,
you
I'm
won.
sorry. I said Brad.
Yeah, give Brad
I'll
100.
give you both a hundo.
Oh, thank
Although I got
God.
to be careful, like going from like $3,000 in your bank account to like
53 grand.
53, potentially more, like, you know, with the Phoenix stuff and like
Yeah.
all that. Like, I don't know what to do with it. Like,
I'd give it to your girlfriend. Give it to your girlfriend, bud.
yeah, Caroline's a lot smarter than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll
I
do
probably
something
should.
good. You'll probably buy like glide baits or something.
Yeah, glide baits, dude. Glide baits scare me, man. Like, I know you caught an 8-pounder in practice on it, but like,
No,
dude,
it's just a 7. It wasn't an 8.
oh, it was a 7.
7-2.
7-2.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, no, I
I'm
need to
putting
figure
them
out
away.
what.
I'm putting them away for the Opens career because only drop shots work and jigs. That's it.
Drop shots and jigs are pretty dialed in the opens, dude.
Yeah, you'll be fine
Yeah.
with that. Well, I think the Elite Series entry fees are 40 or 45 grand. So
Isn't it 50? What is it?
I don't know.
I'm
I
not
think
worried
it's
about it.
50.
I'm probably, you know.
So you got her covered, and then every check you get next year, you can just put right in your pocket.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it.
Oh man, you're going to be spun like a top. You're fine. You could probably have one of your worst finishes of the year and still make it.
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, we kind of alluded to the points a little bit earlier. It's so tight for, that. Well, you've got a little bit of a jump. I don't have it pulled up, but
yeah,
you're up there. You're up there pretty good. And then
I'm
there's
sick.
like 10 of us fighting for like 4 spots after you.
Yeah, I have
Or
1304.
More than 10 of us.
I have 1304. Logan Parks is 1294, and then Kyle Austin's 1286. Tyler Williams is 1271, and you're 1263.
And then Wesley Gore's like a point behind me.
Yeah,
and
he's
there's
1
the
point.
next guy's a couple points, and she's all stacked up. But at least you got a jump on the boys.
I can picture me and Brucey waiting to put our boats in down in Florida, and Kyle will call us and say, "What do you think it's going to take to catch a check?"
Yeah.
Usually you wait until like the first night, but I think you'll call us at the boat ramp.
No, I'll call you at 8:15 in the morning, boys. What's gonna take cash a check?
What's it gonna take?
Dude, well, no, it's funny you say that. Like, the only reason I ask you is because like people have to remember that I don't pre-practice. Like, I don't come out. I'm like you, Brucey. Like, I'm not saying. Trust me. I'm not gonna say that I'm 8 hours to the U.S. border because that would just be a lie. But it's a far drive to all these places, and
yeah, you're way east. There's no no
last year. I mean, last year was my first year fishing any of the lakes on the schedule except for Oneida.
Yeah.
And this year, the only lake I had fished on the entire schedule was the St. Lawrence River. And so, like, St. Lawrence River is my worst finish yet. So I don't know if pre-practice is necessarily like a good thing for me, but I just don't even know. I mean, I know about the weights, but like sometimes these lakes are surprising, especially this year. I mean, it used to be 12.5 pounds, 13 pounds a day was like, you're pretty solid. And now it's like 14.
Yeah, and you really can't go off the local results anymore. With the exception of the St. Lawrence River, the Opens field has beat a lot of the locals in a lot of the tournaments. Like the top 10 usually has 2 locals in it, like jackpotters that live there. Like at Watts Bar, and that kind of tripped me up at Watts Bar was, there's that 100-boat tournament before it, and there were like 45 zeros out of 93 boats. 7 pounds a day was way up there. 10 pounds a day was in the top 10.
Yep.
And you come in the Opens, and if you had 10 pounds, you'd be feeling pretty good, and you would have been in like 40th. Like it's people, I did have this argument with Randy earlier about home lake advantage, but it's when when you're taking a different look at a lake and using a lot of modern tech and a lot of tricks that you acquire from traveling all over, it's the weights go up. So you definitely can't really err on the side of caution. St. Lawrence River was the exception.
Yeah. That place just has,
we got our asses kicked by
Yeah.
by guys that know there.
Yeah,
we got
smoked. You didn't get as smoked. I got smoked.
Yeah, I still lost.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no,
Oh,
dude,
boy.
it's surreal to even like touch like trophy. Like I'm literally like sleeping next to it. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna bring it? Are you gonna bring it to the house when you crash our house the last night when you make the final day again, or no?
Yeah, yeah, I'll bring it.
Raz traveled with his for a couple tournaments afterwards too.
Yeah, no, I'm like this is the first time like I haven't gone back home, and frankly, it was because I won. Because I'm like, you know what? Like I can afford to eat out for X amount of time. I can, crash.
We are missing out, Brucey. He's splurging, and we're not near him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's a man on fire.
Yeah, no, it's pretty epic, man. Like, I wonder if this is how. Like, yeah, it's crazy to feel like I'm. This is the first time that I filled up and like not checked which gas station was like 0.01, like 1 cent cheaper than the other. I'm just like, yeah, that one's convenient. And I just pull in, fill it up.
It sounds too dangerous. You better get back to being frugal.
Yeah,
you're 50 grand will be gone.
You gotta give me, dude. You gotta give me like a week. Come on, I need to pretend like a big shot for a little bit.
Yeah, let her fly.
Yeah,
but no. Everyone that can compete in tournaments is a rich kid, and
I'm exactly, dude. Look, I get it from their perspective. I understand how they could have that opinion, but it's wrong. That's plain and simple. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not true. Like, there are plenty of people out here, and you said it yourself. Like, you couldn't afford to play basketball, right? You're out here doing it.
I sucked anyway.
Yeah. Like, you're not playing. It's a lot of hate, man. But it's just
it's easy to hate when you're not doing good.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah.
That's why.
And that's why we do things like this too, like to give someone a little bit of an insight into how it actually looks, because it's really easy to say, well, this guy's only doing good because he buys waypoints. Well, it's still work to go. Like, one of the guys doing well in the points, I think he had 290 days on the water last year. I don't know if I would put 290 days on the water if I didn't have a job and had unlimited money.
Right.
Like, that is grinding. That's giving up a lot of things. That's working your ass off. So whether you have the financial cushion or not, it's still, that's kind of the beauty of the sport. Like, it all levels out. It's the whoever wants it most and has the mindset and the skill is going to come through in the end. That's why it's so dynamic at the top of the sport.
That's why people have certain skills that others don't. There's all kinds of different techniques to catch them. There's certain guys that know different bodies of water. There's so many things. And it all boils down to, I think the three biggest things are being likable and like not being, so opinionated that you can't get along with people. I think it's adding value to sponsors and people around you too. Like, having a group of people that you're friends with, whether that's at the club level, regional level, national level, like having close buds and, giving them value, like with a friendship, like, or with whatever it may be, is super important. And then obviously putting in the work, like those three things, I think is a recipe for success in the industry, because, you need friends, you need like a group of guys that, you can rely on if something happens, or if, need something. You need sponsors for the most part, because it's, as you guys know, it's extremely expensive. And then, you need to work hard, because if you're not working hard, you're going to get beat by someone who is. And that's just a fact.
Yeah. There's a lot of, like, people don't point out, there's a lot of people with unlimited income that are not doing well.
Correct. A lot.
unlimited resources, full pre-practice on every derby,
Mhm.
getting their arses kicked. So
Yep. 100%.
you're right there. And I think adding that little extra grind, like, you know, you do stuff for Powerhouse and Douglas and you're active, and it's, you know, it's an extra step, but it kind of makes you a little bit tougher in the end too.
Yeah,
I think
I did too.
you can balance a little bit better if something comes up, you know, issues on the road that are going to happen, then, you know, it's just part of it. You've already allotted a certain amount of time to doing other things instead of just fishing, that you can handle it. So
And it helps.
we're pulling for you, bud. It's, I, you know, I'm fully confident you're going to make it. And, it's going to be fun to watch the rest of us claw for those 4 spots.
Oh, come on. Dude, I'll be clawing, man. Don't even say I won't.
Where are you going to go fishing? Are you're going to go to Toho or something down there?
Yeah. You know, I on the topic of working, I have one of my good buddies, Billy Gilbert. He's a, you know, fisherman, a good one, and he like helps support. He is my boss for the medical sales side of things. So I have to do some stuff there. Obviously, I'll be on some podcasts and, you know, having to, you know, read a bunch of stuff to proofread it and make some cold calls. That's always epic. And then, but yeah, like, you know, I'll take a few days here and there, because I do think in Florida, especially, it's helpful to get out and kind of get acclimated to these Florida strain fish. I think it's a totally different game. Florida fishing, I've had one good tournament at Harris, and that was the Bassmaster Team Championship back in the day. I don't think they have those stats like as part of your like Bassmaster profile. I believe I finished 14th or 15th in 2020. It was like 160 boats, like the team deal. Totally different time of the year in December, but you know, I like the lake. I think it'll set up well, but you know, those Florida fish can burn you like big time. So it'll be good just to get acclimated with that. And, you know,
it's going to be fun to watch, guys, like, because there are people in the top 10 that are going to, whether they're doing it consciously or not, are going to try to just catch a limit and just make it. And that limit could be 7 pounds in Florida, and the 10 people behind them could literally have a 6 to 8 pounder.
Yep.
It's the craziest place to end the season. The single craziest lake of all of them to end on.
I'm telling you, man, that's why I don't like when you're like, oh, I'm just confident you'll make it. Well, dude, I got to catch them. Like, I got to catch, I have to catch 14 plus pounds a day. I think. That might be
you're nuts. that's a good target to have.
I'm just putting it in my mind. Okay. Like that's what I'm
lock it in.
There.
Lock it in.
Yeah. That's what I'm putting
Doc
out there.
Doc talking.
Yeah, I'm doc talking. Yep.
All right, bud.
You know, it's crazy.
Anything else you want to say before we hit the bricks here?
No, man. That was a wild 2 hours.
Yeah, you picked a crazy one to win.
Keep my eyes open.
Dude, when you pulled me in, I was just like, wow, that was just incredible. And Jamie, I thought you did a really good job, honestly. And but no, I just appreciate you guys having me on. It's exciting to be in this position. I'm just gonna put the head down and focus on Harris Chain, and I'll see you boys in a couple weeks.
Yeah, follow him at KGP Fishing on Instagram. Reels are funny as shit. He's got the best reel game going. Check him out and check out the points race at Harris Chain in under a couple weeks here.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Excited.
All right, bud.
Well, thanks a lot, Kyle, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Later.
Later.
What do you figure, Brad?
It's time for another. I might go to the ASIO.
The ASIO.
Yep.
Yeah. It's dinner time.
It's dinner time, bud.
Okay. All right.
Well, good night, buddy. I'll see you. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Bass Galaxy, for tuning in.
Thanks, Pat.
Oh, we got cut off. Ginge, we were doing plugs. We were plugging ourselves. Check out Get the Net podcast, Jamie Bruce Fishing, and Brad Leuthner Fishing. That's how you spell it, not how you say it. It's Brad Leitner. And
You
we'll see.
bastard.
We'll see you guys at the next one for the Bassmaster Opens wrap-up show. There's going to be some tears and some celebrations, and it's going to be a good one.
And
Bass
thanks,
Galaxy.
Ninja, for doing an awesome job. And thanks, Pat, for the opportunity. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.